1-2-1-2, man. It's the one and only DJ Chase, man. The pregame part of this podcast right here on WDJCD Beat DJ Chase Radio. But with that being said, man, I have a special guest today. But before we get to that, we're going to get to our sponsors. Today, download that DJ Chase Radio mobile app, man. iPhone, Android. Get exclusive DJ Chase content, record label content, all that on DJ Chase, the radio mobile app. Rapmarkets.com, the official app. The official website coming soon. Podcast directory. Use the promo code DJ Chase. Get 20% off. Get in touch with the hottest podcast platforms, including my own. And Groove are the hottest platform to get in touch with players, curators, get real feedback from real people and not bots. But enough of all that, man. We had to pay the bills. Now, with that being said, today we got a special guest. He's a musician. He's a legend. He's a as they say, a connoisseur of the musical arts there. So today we have Mr. Todd Mosby on the platform today. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, DJ. Thanks very much for having me out. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I was contacted by your team, and they kind of, put me, like I said, I get so many music. I follow music. I get all types of creatives, and, once again, they think that I'm a hip-hop guy, but I'm actually a music educational guy. So with that being said, we got a lot to talk about today.
All right. Lay it on me.
Yes, sir. So you got a new project out, American Heartland. But before we talk about that, I want to discuss your background a little bit. So you are from St. Louis, Missouri, correct?
St. Louis, Missouri. Yep. Home of Albert King, Chuck Berry. Miles Davis was across the river, but it's a big stop-off point for a lot of musicians.
Yeah. Love it. And with that being said, what made you get into music? Because you have a unique style of music as well, too, and I want to talk about that as well. What made you get into music?
I actually, as a kid, growing up, I was kind of exploring different venues as far as creative outlets, writing, like haikus, poetry, painting, drawing, and music. And I landed on music for few simple reasons. I loved the, at the time, quote unquote, drug lights, with stereos, because, I saved, I worked and got my stereo equipment together. And so, but I felt it was the best emotional outlet for my needs at the time. So I was kind of a late starter as far as my studies go. And I entered a music school in Salt Lake City, and the following year wound up at Berkeley College of Music in Boston.
Love it. And with that being said, were your parents involved? Because I see you're a self-proclaimed boomer there.
Yeah.
So with that being said, you guys had it. I'm technically a millennial, but I was raised by Gen X and raised by the boomers.
Yeah.
And so I was raised by silent generation, boomer, and Gen X. So I'm all types of wrong. So with that being said, growing up in that era, you guys had a lot of opportunities that we didn't. In a sense, it was a little easier. Were your parents involved in music or anything like that?
Not at all, and they actually were not very supportive of the path I chose, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have a history of music. They didn't know how the industry ran. They just saw what was on TV, and you have a record, and then all of a sudden you're famous. So you're on TV, or the Milton Berle, whatever, or David Letterman or whatever. And it seriously does not work like that. So they kind of came up with the myth of, without really understanding, because they weren't in the industry.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to be an architect or whatever. But I consider myself like an architect of sound.
Yeah, love it. And with that being said, too, my brother, so now you got all this information. Like, you get to the Berkeley School of Music in Boston. Did you want to go more to the musician side, or do you want to go more because there's different paths in music, as we know. There's music business, there's the tech side, and there's the artist side. What side did you choose to kind of initially start out with?
Oh my God, DJ. Yeah, it's a massive field. I mean, think of the automotive industry or the space industry and everything that has to do with like in music, you got everything from product manufacturing, playback systems, where their playbacks. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. It actually drove, I'm going to get off topic a second, but the music industry actually drove the technology of early computers, because we needed such a large amount of hard drive space for memory just to store the audio information. But to get back to what you said, so I was essentially I did not have my chops together musically, so I was going and I know I hit the Berkeley field totally. I don't even know how I got in, to tell you the truth, but I think back then they were a
Yeah.
little bit more lenient. I wanted to learn how to arrange and write, so I thought, okay, I'll just go in with that, and then, you know, try to play guitar and pick up on that. But 3 years in, you know, I was at the limit of my funding, and my teacher said, you know, you're going to be the only one that's going to be playing your stuff, so you better learn how to really get your guitar stuff together. Go back to St. Louis, and then come back to Boston, New York, LA, Nashville, wherever, you know, to a major music center.
Yeah.
So that choice was kind of, I was driven more towards the creative side, which meant composition and arranging. I loved arranging. I grew up on television shows. I loved writing music for visuals and like that. Now, that has never really happened too much in my career, but that was the initial impetus. When I got out and came back to St. Louis, I found myself, you know, just kind of drifting, and I started, you know, I
Yeah.
wound up playing guitar a lot more and focusing on that so I could get
Yeah.
gigs and actually work and survive.
Got you. Got you.
So,
So you know I have to ask this question. This is going to be a really tough question.
yeah.
Analog or digital?
Analog. Well, wait. Yeah. And,
Okay. Yeah.
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 I was sold on the whole digital thing. I had a recording studio, a composition studio in St. Louis, because that's what I did when I came back. I got, you know, other jobs outside of the field to pay for my studio gear. And so I was right in at the very beginning of when gear started becoming affordable. It's called semi-audio,
Mhm.
semi-pro gear. And it was just out of with just barely within reach of, like, you know, the normal person. You know, you
Yeah.
didn't, because prior to 1980 or 81, the gear was still pretty expensive, and you had to, you know, go to studios. But I needed a composition studio, and so
Yeah.
that led me down a path of recording, creating my own cables, you know, soldering. You know, it was
Yeah.
crazy, man. If
Yeah.
you want to go down that road, it's, you
They
know,
don't listen.
but
I was at the tail end of that. I was at the
mhm.
tail end of that when I started. They don't teach. They don't teach the good stuff no more. So I
Yeah,
want to talk about that,
yeah,
Mr. Todd. Right. So
sure.
now, as you see, you know, the bedroom musician is being let me see, implemented in the music business, is being pushed as the norm. You know what I'm saying? As trained ears like ourselves, we know that a lot of that stuff is not bedroom musicianship, but it's being portrayed as that. How do you feel about the new engineers and the new sound of pushing this distorted kind of bottom, and this, you know, the distortion is kind of driving with music, but that's why it's kind of not selling. How do you feel about that?
Um, Let me first address the question of the bedroom musician, because I
Listen,
was one,
yes, sir.
you know, and I lived through all that.
Yeah,
The noises, the best. So honestly, me personally, I prefer being in a nice studio that the gear's kept up, it's high quality gear, and playing live with other musicians.
yeah,
I feel that as soon as you start isolating yourself, now there's, like, if you're doing like backing tracks, or, you know, maybe tracks for gaming, or, you know, backing tracks for video, like informational kinds of things, sound beds, then yeah, maybe, you know, that's music at a different level. But if you're plan on doing music that requires any kind of longevity or
mm-hmm.
serious sit down, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
go over repeated listening. So I would say that for me personally, I prefer the
Yeah,
live studio with the live musicians, which is not the norm anymore,
yeah,
sadly.
yeah. I agree.
Uh, but so on the other hand, you have convenience, and I was just actually writing something on this on an interview recently, and it kind of talked about this aspect. And if I could just jump into that,
Yeah, we can talk about it. Let's talk about it.
just a quick dive into
Yeah.
that. So, what's happened is, you know, with streaming platforms, etc. I mean, I recorded this album in Village Studios. That place was almost dead. I
Yeah.
was like the only person in there. Where back in the day, that studio would have been booked day and night. Okay.
Yeah.
the players I was with were top shelf players. I mean, and they came up in the industry playing, in that studio, all the LA studios. And it was a rare, I just wanted to be a fly on the wall and kind of see what was going on here, how they interacted, because they have history, decades of history together. And I was very fascinated that this is the first time they'd ever really been together in a long time, because Vinny Colaiuta goes, yeah, I could just go and walk downstairs and to my basement or my room in my pajamas and lay a track down, and that's okay. Fine. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. For me personally, I think you're missing about 20% of the information. But all these guys preferred being in the studio, tracking live.
Yeah.
And when you start fragmenting out, you're just isolated in your room, this is post-COVID thing, I guess. I don't know. But all of a sudden now the whole industry that's normally a people-oriented industry is now fractionalized out to just these little separate units. Everybody's isolated. Music is not to be. I don't think that was ever the concept of music. It's a people-oriented art.
I agree.
And more so than all the arts. And to fractionalize it out like that is almost a shame. But it's also, it's also kind of where we're at today. And I think streaming is driving that. Tell you the truth.
Yeah, and I want to ask you that as well. Now, like I said, you've been because I want to talk about this North Indian music. I kind of want to get into that and how you kind of a guy from St. Louis, Missouri, got into that. And we're gonna correlate that into the music business itself as far as streaming too, because I want to talk about AI music as well. How did you get into North Indian music, and what is that? Is it like traditional, like Native American Indian, or Indian from overseas?
This is Indian from overseas.
Okay.
It's actually called classical North. There's two Indian forms of music in India, North Indian and South Indian. And they're, similar rags, but very different forms. And so I first was introduced to North Indian music as a kid in St. Louis. I used to go down the street, to this kind of import shop, and he was always playing these Indian stuff, burning incense, and had all this stuff from India. I thought it was so cool. And I was always rifling through the album section looking for sitar and saranga and tabla. But anyway, so fast forward, a couple of decades later, I was working at WashU as a dance accompanist, musician dance accompanist. And for a dance classes there. And so Imrat Khan was invited in to teach there. So I monitored his class, and I wound up, I did the research on him. He was India's greatest whatever, actually greatest ustad, taught George Harrison, taught Brian Jones. Just had a huge history, and him and his brother reinvented sitar again.
Wow.
So anyway, bottom line was he wound up living in St. Louis, right down the road from me. I'm going, what? So I'm going, this man goes back 500 years of, ustads, which are the highest level musicians in India. And if you ever listen to a North Indian player, my God, they've got the best instrumental technique on the planet. So I took it. I actually accessed that tree of knowledge for over 13 years. And it was if I were in India, I couldn't access this guy. But he was in St. Louis, and I tried telling my friends, hey, come on, check this. I must say that I did wind up probably costing me about equal to 3 postgraduate degrees, but it didn't matter. The information was so awesome, and what drew me in was the fact that I couldn't. It was so hard to learn, and that's been my kind of thing all through music.
Gotcha.
Is the learning aspect.
Yeah, and it's I always even me as a DJ, you have to kind of set a what's the word I'm looking for? Know when to stop. You know what I'm saying? You got to kind of set a goal for yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because people, they always say even me growing up, I've always interned at studios. I was at Smash Studios in New York. I'm a New York guy, so
cool.
I had to, I was spoiled back in the day. So But with that being said, you got to kind of reach the point of like, okay, what's the next thing? So you're not on a hamster wheel of like trying to chase a Grammy or trying to chase, the $1 million budgets. You know what I'm saying? And with that being said, how do you feel like today with artists having to compete with AI music and, even musicians having to compete with sampling from AI samples and it's kind of weaning out the quality? To me, I don't like AI music because the quality is terrible, but how do you feel about that?
The big question is why? Why would you do that?
Mm,
I mean,
mm,
if you've got your own creative sense, why? I mean,
mm,
I see AI as an assistant
mm,
always. It assists me when I'm doing, writing compositions,
mm,
especially on
mm,
playback. When I'm scoring out music, I
mm,
get really nice timbral mock-ups.
mm,
But I mean, why? Unless you have no talent at all, why would you like go to AI to like,
mm.
or have an artificial intelligence? Solo can probably do a pretty good job. I heard Rick Beato.
Yeah.
Did you hear that episode of Rick Beato where he was like, he gave AI a task. Okay, I want a song, a country western song, female vocalist, this
Yeah,
topic, this
yeah,
instrumentation, and then the thing came back 5 minutes later, and it's like, whoa, okay.
yeah,
And that was
yeah,
like a year ago, or maybe a year and a half
yeah,
ago, so it's probably way more advanced now. But
mm,
I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't. If you're a
yeah,
creative,
yeah,
why would you ever have something else, a machine, do it for you?
yeah. I agree. I
It
agree.
doesn't matter how good it is. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Me, honestly, AI is terrible. Well, I'm a hip. No, I guess I produce rap. I produce everything. I'm not gonna lie, I produce everything.
Uh-huh.
But actually, the most consumption comes from hip hop stuff. But I think it makes it my job. But I tell people all the time, we've always used it. So to me, I don't have an issue with it. We, Pro Tools, we always automated it. We even like I started in
Yeah.
like 2004. We've
Yeah.
always used it automation.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
to me, it doesn't. It's just like you said, an assistant. So I don't really,
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't bother me. But
I think where the problem will be from the streaming platforms because
yeah,
now they don't have to pay out royalties. But I
yeah.
was at an event the other day, last
Mm,
weekend, and they was talking about AI. If you have AI do a piece and you put your name to it and
mm,
say, you cannot collect any kind of royalty on it
mm,
as a songwriter or artist. So I mean,
mm,
again, why? The
yeah.
only people it's benefiting are the streaming platforms, and again,
Mm,
they've screwed musicians. Are
yeah.
like they've cheapened the whole musical experience to the point where
Yeah.
I don't know if the consumer, how aware of it is they are, because
Mm,
obviously the audio quality is way down,
yeah.
but I think it's cheapened the overall it's very convenient, and whenever you have convenience like that,
Yeah.
it's going to suffer in other areas, and I think it's really cheapened the quality or the whole music experience for the
Mm,
audience, the listener, even though they may not even be aware of it because they're so used to it by now.
yeah.
Oh, I don't
Well,
know. That's my thought on that.
nah, nah. I love it. I love it. Well said. And like I said, because once again, my audience is education. You know what I'm saying? I teach the next generation and, give them that experience. So I want to ask you this question, right? You know, acoustic guitar or electric guitar? What you got?
Depends on the style. Okay. Uh, so if I'm playing, I love the sound of acoustic guitar. I always have.
Mm,
I mean, I can pick it up. I don't need an amp. I can play it, and I can take it out in the field. I'm not bound by anything. But then again, if I want, I can jack into my board and pull up some really nice ambient kinds of things and good reverb or delay. Electric guitar, depending on the style. I think of them as tools. So for jazz, I'd be obviously an arch top. For a crossover, I'd be more like a semi-hollow or even a hollow body. If I'm doing funk, definitely a solid body. If I'm doing like fingerstyle acoustic guitar,
yeah.
acoustic. If I'm doing classical North Indian hardcore, I'll play my Imrock guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do
Love
have a couple of recordings that actually combine all three of them on top of the melody, and it's like layered three ways. So here's all of them. Now you can hear it, that kind of vibe.
I
So,
love it, love it, love it. And with that being said, too, now let's talk about American Heartland, a new project, the instrumental project. What made you do an instrumental project versus, with vocalists? What made you do that?
well, DJ, I've always worked with instrumental, and even the vocals are what's called vocalese, so they don't really
Mm-hmm.
have words. I like the human aspect, especially of the female voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always combined like that. Uh, what was the question again?
No, it's okay. I was asking what
Keep
would
me on
America.
track.
It's okay. It's
Okay.
okay. It's okay. With American Heartland, I was more or less asking. I was like, what made you do this project? Because once again, you
I
have
see.
many awards from
Yes.
instrumental projects. But what made you
Okay.
decide to do an instrumental project versus with a top line vocalist?
Okay. So I would say out of all the albums, American Heartland is probably the more vocal oriented. There could be voices of the Heartland actually, because just about every track has vocalists on it.
Yeah.
Or, but I actually did write lyric for a couple of the tracks, but very minimalistic because I don't I would to me I like hearing the heart of the music. Like lyrics can sometimes get in the way of what the sonic image is. But again, a great lyricist and a great melody and song can actually be incredibly powerful, like Joni Mitchell, James, the old school stuff, or even
Yeah.
a lot of the great stuff that's coming out today.
Yeah.
But because I'm an instrumentalist, guitarist and a composer of that zone, I'm not much of a lyricist,
Mm.
but I do can I use words more to help impart like an image.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in the way of the listener's idea for how, what kind of image. I don't want to put an image in there. I want to leave the imagination open to the listener, if that makes sense.
That makes plenty of sense. Yes.
Yeah. So I tend to just have emotive and descriptive words, and this album kind of shows that a lot. Although I did choose two pieces, Wichita Lineman and Both Sides Now, that were written,
Mm.
by the classic, American songwriters
Yeah.
that have come up through America.
Yeah, love it, love it. And how do you feel about the resurgence of vinyl? And it's going to be a question, like, because I want to talk about my last question before we get out of here is, like, staying independent and being an independent musician. How do you feel about the resurgence of physical product now? As you see, the streaming is kind of like it's iffy now. People starting to hear the differences and the sonic differences between vinyl, even CDs are coming back. You know what I'm saying? How do you feel about that?
Great, because again, now you're back in the game of not cheapening the product. You've actually got a physical package. The audio quality is so much better. I mean, Tidal and Kabaz, they'll stream, Kabaz will even go up to 92K 24-bit, which is very convenient, but still, it's nothing like the 3D realm that you'll have with a CD, and especially vinyl. Vinyl is probably the ultimate listening experience. I mean, we're all sold this digital thing, but here's the gig. I mean, with that, with CD and vinyl, you've got packaging, you've got actually a product that you have some kind of ownership to. You can feel it. You open it up, you read about it, the people, all the information that went into it, the players, the art that's part of the packaging. It's the whole gig. And I was in actually a record store the other day, first time in a while. It's got a great smell to pick up the vinyl and just, oh man, it's
Yeah.
like it's part of an experience that the consumer, again, because of the convenience of streaming, it doesn't get anymore. And I'm not sure. I mean, I remember that.
Yeah.
But and I don't know. It's just a whole nother zone. If vinyl has actually surpassed CDs for a while now, but
Yeah.
yeah. But there's nothing like being in the 3D realm. I was listening to a vinyl the other day, about a couple weeks ago, at a friend of mine's place. She put it up on her system. I'm like going, oh my god! I mean, you're walking inside a 3D space. You can feel the vibration. It's a
Yeah.
totally different experience than
Yeah.
zeros and ones coming off of a
CD.
yeah. It's a very, very
Yeah.
good. I think it's a very good thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And with that being said, Mr. Todd, man, American Heartland is out now. I want to ask you this: are you have any shows coming up? What's going on?
Um, I would say right now, no. I'm
Yeah.
focusing on recordings.
Love it.
My touring days are, COVID kind of shut down my touring operation. I had a lot of infrastructure in place pre-COVID, but the agency I had and was working with didn't quite survive it. And then on the back end of that, I was playing a lot of performing arts centers. On the back end of that, they switched their formatting to more like, Elton John kind of tribute band. Well, actually, all tribute bands in Elton John.
Yeah. Yeah, easy ticket, I guess. Easy tickets, I guess.
Well, it is, easy ticket, easy, and it's a shame because the executive directors are the ones that really are in charge of curating their audiences for something new. And it's just getting like I can't compete against 4 or 5 different Elton John shows, or Linda Ronstadt, or Paul McCartney, and that's basically, or Las Vegas shows. There's nothing like original, unless you're already a name brand. Yeah. A big brand.
And I love it though, but you know what though? With that being said, we stand strong because that's why I'm here, because we get that awareness out, we build that independent fan base, and music is a universal language, you know what I'm saying? And with that being said, Mr. Todd, I want to ask you this, right? My very last question before we get out of here. If you had any one piece of advice that you would give, all the knowledge that you have, all the awards that you have, all the technical expertise that you have, what is one piece of advice that you would give anyone getting into the music business today?
Okay, it's pretty vast, so I would say keep an open mind. Things shift really quickly in this industry, but if that's your passion, follow it, and follow it at all cost, because it's not an easy path, but it's a path that you do not because you want to, but because you have to, I think.
Love it. Once again, Mr. Todd, man, I actually want to do this again.
Absolutely.
But we got to talk more. With that being said, man, Mr. Todd Mosby, where can the people find you? The website is amazing. Where can people get in contact with you? Need some loops? Need some mixing and mastering? Where can people get in contact with you, my brother?
ToddMosbyMusic.com. You can hit me up there on my website, or ToddMosbyMusic@iCloud.com is my email. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. Those are good platforms. LinkedIn, you can find me there too, and just hit me up if you need anything, or even want to chat or get some insight into the industry. So.
For sure. Love it. Once again, Todd Mosby in the building, American Heartland, right here on WDJCDB, DJ Chase Radio. I told y'all, man, 2026 is bigger and better. Get that on that Spotify podcast, Apple podcast, YouTube DJ Chase TV. Also, to the new book, The Record Label Cheat Sheet, Volume 2, How to Run a Record Label, and a quick guide to running a record label. Get some inside information. It's available on Amazon. And we are out of here. Once again, DJ Chase, and I'm out. Cheers.